Yep, it's recording. Yeah.
So you can record on this on cloud also, I guess.
Right. If somebody is already recording, I wouldn't record.
Yeah, it's recording. Recording.
Started the recording. Yeah, it's fine.
Good morning, everybody. So today we are having a session on international education, applications, funding, and scholarship.
भाई
So here,
हेलो
yeah.
हाँ भाई मैं ये कह रहा था कि जो है इसका क्या नाम है
Shall I
Sir,
continue?
please start your.
Yeah.
इसका
So today we are having a session on international education, applications, and funding scholarships, friends. So we have Miss Neeta Chopra, who is a managing director for Envoy Education Services, and she has been helping students pursuing internet through her. And our Chandranshu is a live example of one of the beneficiaries who got benefited from her services. So Chandranshu will introduce and say a few words more about Miss Neeta Chopra. Before I hand over the mic to Chandranshu, I would like to say a few words about international education and our alumni association. Great knowledge comes with great associations, not just with great books. One such association is our alumni association. So I'm very happy to moderate this session, which is going to give insights about international education, further pursuit of education, and the needs for higher education. Hope you will all get benefit from this session. And after Ms. Neeta Chopra speaks and give us her insights, we'll have a Q&A session where all the participants can ask her regarding various questions they have about international education. So, Chandranshu, would you introduce Ms. Neeta to everyone of us in detail? And then please tell us your experience of international education, how you got the idea and what went in, how you are able to now be in Brighton, UK. And
Chandranshu is not in yet. Sorry for interruption. So
Oh.
I'm just.
sorry.
So I'm just
Okay.
calling him. Yeah, I'm just calling him.
No problem.
He's in the waiting room, so I'm just listening. Yeah, he's in. Yeah.
And then
बहुत महंगा होता है फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट दे रहा है एक बार
Yes, you can go ahead. Chandranshu has already joined now.
एक बार में भी मैं सारे लोगों को
Yeah, hi Chandranshu. We had one speaker who introduced me just now, and
Chandranshu, can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me, guys?
I can.
Yeah, so I just introduced Miss Neeta Chopra to everybody, and I was just telling, I was introducing you also.
Okay.
So everybody, Chandranshu is a student of batch 3 from PGDRDM. He worked in various projects. He was a software engineer turned to developmental sector. Now he is pursuing his international education in Institute of Developmental Studies in Brighton, UK. and he will give us brief view about how we pursued this international education with the help of Miss Neeta. And also, please introduce us, Miss Neeta, to everybody. Chandranshu, I hand over the mic to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jashima. So, I would start with some thoughts and how about this international education. That how did I land up on this particular idea? How did I pursue it? And probably then hand it over to Miss Neeta. So, like. Uh, to start with, as Jashima told all of you about.
We have, I think, lost his voice.
Yeah,
Chandranshu,
you're
are
mute.
you there?
Yeah.
You're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible now.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So, I was working with HelpAge for some 7 years when I left them last year. But when I was in my fifth and sixth year, I had started feeling a little stagnant about my position, my work, and somewhere from one of my gurus actually, who is like Mr. G. Bhargava. I think a few students from batch one might know him. I was actually having a discussion with him, I remember 2018 or something, and he actually mentioned a very critical statement in front of me. Chandranshu, I actually asked him that, sir, can you tell me that when should one think of leaving a job or something like that? So he just made a statement that the day your learning stops, this is the time when you should think of making a move. So that is how actually I was trying to explore in my sixth year of my job, that how do I move forward. And that is the time actually I thought about I was trying options of moving out, and I gave some interviews at few more charities, few more NGOs, but I was feeling that I was getting a feeling that I'm landing in the same in a new organization. So then while trying to make a move, uh, I randomly actually one day walked into a British Council education fair just to explore what is there in it for me. And that is the place I actually got some ideas that what is happening around international education and stuff. So, and that is the place where I also met Miss Neeta ji, who was representing University of Sussex there. And that's how my thoughts and things have started around this. And maybe in November or December, I started with my applications, not only with University of Sussex. I also started on what course and what university should I choose in I'm to move forward. And additionally, I would also with all these applications, I think I was lucky enough to get things cleared in a very short span of say 6 months. So my application, I had applied for university with some 5 to 6 courses, and I quickly was able to apply for scholarships, and everything was falling in line. So that is something that's how I started sometime in December, and I took admission. Like my admission and my going to UK was finalized by July. So that is
July
like, I
last year.
think, yeah, July 2019. Yeah. So I think when all of you would listen to the session of our guest, so Miss Neeta, you would somewhere say that this had been quite quick. So there are people who take a lot of time to prepare. They actually start from July, and then their admissions and going to UK or any other country confirms in next July. So it is more of a 12-month process. So
Right. Thank you,
yeah, so
Chandranshu.
yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to add anything else?
Jasimha, do you want me to tell about my experience of studying at Sussex, or
We'll
do we?
come that after Miss Neeta speaks.
Yeah,
So
sure.
thank you for giving us a real-time introduction about your experience in pursuing the higher education. So everybody here, I present Miss Neeta, who is going to give us some idea about the international education, applications, funding, and scholarship. Along with that, you can also, if you have any other doubts other than what she speaks about in general, or how the attitude should be, when to start, why is it necessary to pursue higher education in rural development. So here, ma'am, Miss Neeta, ma'am, I present you the group. It's all yours. So there's a very diverse group: engineers, agriculturists, science background. You know, it's like in India. The NIRD Alumni Association is like India. It's very diverse. Uh, Please take over from here and tell us the international opportunities for rural development sector. Thank you.
So, first of all, good morning to everyone. And I would say it's very nice to have this meeting when one of our ex-students they gave us such opportunities to connect with the people who are looking forward to such opportunities. And I am very happy that I've been given this opportunity. So today, as Mr. Jayasima said and Chandranshu mentioned that we'll be discussing about opportunities uh, for overseas education. I'll start with the tradition and quality of education. So, as you people must be aware that when we talk about overseas education, specifically in terms of when we talk about country specific, then when I come to UK's tradition and quality of education, uh, it offers brilliant educational opportunities, and at least out of world's top 100 universities, at least 18 are from the UK, which is why UK along with US are the two most preferred destination for Indian students
Right.
for the overseas education. And this is very much this is very much evident with the fact that if we look at top 500 universities, various 500 universities of various country, then if I talk about country wise, so in UK there are total about 120 to 170 universities, out of which half of them are under the top 500 list. And if I talk about US, so the total number of universities in US are 1240, which is like very high a number if we compare it with UK or with Australia. So Australia has total 40 universities, and like I mentioned, there are 1240. But then even though there are 1240 universities in US, only 8% of them are under the top 500 list. So this itself speaks about the quality of education which UK is delivering. And the quality standards are amongst the best in the world, which is why qualifications are both
Ma'am, I'm
recognized.
sorry to interrupt you. Karunakar Reddy, can you please mute your device? Karunakar Reddy, I request everybody to kindly mute their device so that we wouldn't interrupt Miss Neeta as she speaks. Thank you, ma'am. Please continue.
Thank you. So, like I was mentioning, that another unique factor about UK qualification is that it's recognized and respected all over the world. And just like India, many other countries are following the standards set by the UK. And here, again, another unique thing about UK's education is that you can start to focus on your areas of studies, and that's why the courses are very specialized. So generally, I mean, if we talk about Indian education, the very fact of specializing or selecting your area of expertise comes much after you complete your bachelor's, right? And what happens is that during the college days, when you're pursuing your bachelor's degree, the students are still unsure as to what they really want to further do, whether they want to enter a job or they would want to do further specialization, and if a specialization, what could be the subject, even though they're still pursuing their bachelor's, and they can probably take up a subject of their area of interest. But just because the study system is such that even if they land into a bachelor's course, they're still unsure. So here, if we talk about UK education, then the courses are and the qualification, I mean, all the career-based qualifications are available, and it is available in almost all possible subjects, which is like it could be computer science, engineering, social sciences, life sciences, biotechnology, management, law, anything which you could, you could think of, you could do a specialization. And now if I come to the UK education system, so here the bachelor's course, just like India, it's a 3 or 4 years duration course, though in Scotland, so which is like UK, that is slightly different. That could be either 4 or 5 years. And generally, when we talk about soon after you complete your bachelor's, that is followed up with a master's degree, which could be a MA or a MSc. That is a 12 months course. So in India, we have a 24 months, 2 years course for masters. However, when we talk about UK education, it's a 12 months course. So 12 months course doesn't mean that it's you don't get to learn things, but then it's, I would say, it's scientifically designed, it's intensive. You still get to learn what you'll be studying in a 2 years masters. And that could be again followed up with the, I would say, if the students want to pursue further a research degree soon after they complete their masters, so they could do an MPhil or a PhD, which is normally a 3-year or a 4-year course. Now let's talk about why one should think of studying in UK. What could be more reasons? So like I mentioned that masters in UK is a 1-year program. So the students, they actually stay on 1 year. And then the universities, if you target the government universities, the top ranked universities, so there is in terms of funding the study, there is easily availability of nationalized bank and foreign banks. And of course, not to forget this fact that there are a variety of scholarships available. You become a part of a truly international community. You get tremendous exposure. And of course, you get to enjoy a new culture, a new country. And besides this, you can, those, who think of doing a part-time job to kind of somehow support their living, they could do a part-time job as well, which is legally one can do 20 hours of part-time job a week. And these are some of the reasons why UK is a prime destination. And currently, generally, there are about 30 to 40,000 students from India every year they go to UK studying various degrees in various part of UK. And now let us understand what kind of scholarships are generally available when one is thinking of applying to UK. So there are two kind of scholarship. One is an entry level departmental scholarship, which is generally sponsored by the university. So those are small grants, which could be, I would say, which ranges from £3,000 to a maximum of £6,000 or £7,000. So that is something which, if a student gets that scholarship, then they get a, I would say, reduction of that much of amount on their tuition fee. And besides that, whatever amount is left, then we have to see how we are going to manage that that much of money. So this is something which is departmental scholarship, and these are it could be either a bursary or a merit-based, I mean competitive scholarship, for which there are various factors. They look at your academic profile, they look at the experience, and then based on those factors, the I would say a candidate is selected for such scholarships. Beyond this, so like I mentioned, that one is a departmental scholarship which is sponsored by the university. Other is a governmental scholarship, for which I would say, in fact, Chandranshu was one of the candidate who managed to get this scholarship, and he got World Bank. If I'm not wrong, Chandranshu, he got through World Bank scholarship.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we will be talking about such scholarships. So it could be Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, World Bank. Then there is something like Bharat Petroleum, Tata Trust, Aga Khan Foundation, Shivning Scholarships. Then there are various J.N. Tata endowment section they have. So they have various departments for various, I would say, subjects for which they're granting scholarship to the students who want to pursue overseas education. But then these are just like I said that I mean, when we talk about the UK university scholarship, the departmental scholarship, so that could be a bursary as well, which is I would say kind of a automatic scholarship depending on certain criteria, like you should be an Indian national or something. But then those are small grants which could be to a maximum extent of up to £10,000, right? But then when we talk about these external scholarships, then these are fully sponsored scholarships, wherein they take care of your living expense, your tuition fee, your airfare, and sometimes your visa processing fees as well. So everything is taken care by such organizations, right? But then one has to prepare accordingly well in time in order to apply to these scholarships, and also to make sure that whatever is the eligibility criteria for these scholarships, everything is ready with the students so that they can ultimately file the application to such organizations which I just mentioned, like Commonwealth Scholarship, Aga Khan Foundation, Tata Trust, J.N. Tata Endowment. Then there is Bharat Petroleum. And again, there is one called Narottam Seksaria Scholarship. So one has to basically see, and moreover, to add to this external scholarship section, I just want to say that every year there are certain modulations which happen. So we have to basically every year we have to see that what changes have happened this year for this particular scholarship, to make sure that yes, everything is in place, so that to increase the chances of getting such scholarships. Now, let us just come to the entry requirements for a postgraduate degree in UK. So, and which is, I'm sure, I mean, all the participants of this session must be eligible in terms of the entry criteria, because what I believe is all are bright students and they have some or the other expertise in their field. So the minimum entry criteria is that one should have a first class degree from I would say a low scoring institution from India. So what happens is with the top notch universities in UK, they have categorized the Indian institutions into high scoring and low scoring institutes. So when it comes to the high scoring institutes, then the criteria increases, which means they might require above 65% of aggregate in your bachelor's. And if it's a low scoring institutes, then they may be happy to take up a 55% aggregate graduate from India. Along with this, there is a English language proficiency requirement as well. So for that, one has to take up IELTS, and in IELTS, one is supposed to get a minimum of 6.5 overall band with not less than 6.5 and 6.5 in 3 components, which is reading, writing, speaking 6.5, and listening could be 6. So these are 4 components of the English language proficiency test. Apart from that, one can also take up TOEFL, and the minimum score is somewhere between 90 to 100 with not less than 24 and 27 in writing and speaking. And beyond this, we always encourage the students to apply as early as possible, because then the later you apply, then the lesser are the chances that you'll actually make up in time for the scholarship opportunities, and various other factors are there wherein the students are not left with many choices, which is why we always encourage the students to apply as soon as possible. And it's basically like Chandranshu mentioned, that it somewhere takes up almost a year to complete this process, because it's very systematic process, right? So one has to first of all select the university, and then there are various other things one has to take care of. Now, as I mentioned that you can actually take up IELTS and TOEFL. So if you are thinking of preparing for such language proficiency tests, instead of just straight away registering for these tests, we suggest the students to look for online free mock test and the material available to understand exactly what IELTS and TOEFL is. And what basically one can do is, and that's the reason I mentioned that the students should apply as soon as possible. We can actually apply without these language tests, explaining the entire portfolio of the student, and then depending on how the university assess the students, there is a possibility that the student will get a waiver on the language proficiency test, which will actually save close to around 16,000 rupees for this test. So that is this part. And like I mentioned, so I would say the route map of the application process is such.
I think ma'am's.
We require a CV and then the documents to apply to the university. Once we mail the documents to the university, we get a conditional or an unconditional letter in between 3 to 4 weeks of time. Then we apply for scholarship. If we get condition on IELTS, then we sit for IELTS or the TOEFL test. And the students, those who are still pursuing their degree, once they get the final degree certificates, I mean the provisional certificate or the mark sheet, then we submit the same to the university so that they can get an unconditional letter and finally a visa letter. And during this process, we also apply for accommodation within the deadlines and prepare the financial documents and apply for visa. And then finally the student flies to UK to pursue their masters, right? Just to mention what all documents are required basically to apply to such institutions. So you need a 10th, 12th, your degree transcript and certificates, CV, statement of purpose, 2 recommendation letters, your language test, and a valid passport. So these are some of the documents which are which is basically required. So let us just understand what statement of purpose is. Statement of purpose is basically a small essay on, I would say, myself, right? So we used to write a essay on myself when we used to be in first or second standard. But then this personal statement has to be, mature, since some of the students are graduate or those who are pursuing their graduation, right? So you need to elaborate and highlight your achievements in the personal statement, talk about your academics, extracurricular activities, why do you want to pursue that course, why that particular university. Then you talk a little bit about or the foundations in that particular subject area, right? And if your background is not suitable, so some students, they basically switch from a different subject to altogether a different stream. So there they need to basically stress on their passion for that subject and whatever extra readings they have done to justify that why they want to pursue that particular course. And then apart from that, if any relevant opinion which you would like to highlight, what are your future aims, goals, and also make sure that so we have various I would say literature and such samples available on internet. So please do not copy paste from internet. It has to be completely your own original work, because the universities in UK, they are very serious about plagiarism, right? So it has to be original, genuine written statement of purpose. And beyond that, CV, as everybody knows, that it should have your personal details, your education details, your work experience, internship. This is what the CV should carry. Other than that, when we talk about reference letter, so it has to be on a headed paper on the institution, stamped and signed by the referee, and suitably from somebody who has actually taught you, or probably sometimes, in fact, the principal of the college. They also take lectures. So if they are teaching you any subject, you can take a reference from the principal as well. And they should basically write about your suitability as a candidate, and then endorse your academic achievements. And in fact, they can add, say, 2-3 liners on any kind of projects if you have done, and can also add to your English communication skills. So this is what a reference letter should carry. Let us now ultimately come to the university part, and today I'll be talking about University of Sussex. And as I mean, I don't know whether the students are aware or not. So when we talk about the subjects related to development studies, there is an institute called IDS. IDS stands for Institute of Development Studies. This is situated, or I would say located in the campus of University of Sussex. And this is, I would say, in terms of ranking, in terms of reputation or research, it's number one in the world when we talk about subjects related to development studies or in general development studies. So let us just understand what basically this university is. So University of Sussex is a Royal Chartered traditional university which was formed after the Second World War. And the government, it was set as the center of international excellence after the Second World War. And not sure about last year because of this COVID situation, but yes, there are currently about 12,500 students, and it has got the best student staff ratio, and it's basically a campus-based university situated in Brighton. Now, if I talk about the ranking of the university, it's 150th in the world and top 20 in the UK in terms of research, and rated very highly in terms of the national research and international excellence. It has produced 3 Nobel Prize winner and a winner of the prestigious Crafoord Prize, and has got various alumni, including presidents and prime ministers. One of the alumni is President Thabo Mbeki, who's the president of Republic of South Africa. He graduated from University of Sussex, which was basically, he had a small interview with the BBC News Online as well in the year 2000, and the date must be, I think it was 6 June or something. So this is basically what University of Sussex is in terms of the ranking. Apart from that, if we talk about the student opinion, then there is I would say there was a voting or a poll happened, and that is called International Student Barometer. So they did a survey, and in that survey, close to around 150,000 international students participated. And this university was chosen as the place to be out of all the universities in England for 3 consecutive years. So the overall experience of the university, experience in terms of the student is simply fantastic. Now let us talk about the Institute of Development Studies. So like the best in the world for development studies. And it is occupied by IDS. And probably the 11th position could be universities like SOAS, which is School of Oriental and African Studies. Then it could be University of East Anglia, Manchester, London School of Economics. These could have 11th position. And in the last 40 years, I mean, this institute has, in terms of the research and the achievement, whatever has been done has been single-handedly done by and done at IDS by the scholars and the professors. And it is a world center for development policy. And it has got the famous research scholars, including Naila Kabir, Richard Chambers, Michael Lipton, Maya Unnithan, others could be Vinita Damodaran. So these are some of the, I would say, world famous research scholars who regularly come to India for their research. And the most important fact about IDS is that subject like development studies is not taught from the white man's perspective. And IDS library is a world treasure center for development information. In fact, every year, the Indian government, they send few of their brightest civil servants for training at IDS. So that's how, that's how reputed and big IDS is. Now, if I talk about the courses which are taught and delivered at Sussex, so I have a general course in MA Development Studies, but then if somebody is, working in a specific area under development, then one can also pursue Globalization, Business and Development, MA Food and Development, Poverty and Development, Conflict, Security and Development, Social Development. So these are some of the courses which I've mentioned. Rest, once you will just visit the website of University of Sussex and IDS Institute of Development Studies, you're able to see the list of the courses. Other could be better in development, power, participation, social change. These are some of the courses which are taught at IDS. Now, so there are certain other subjects beyond IDS which are taught in the School of Global Studies. So this is, there is a reason that why I'm mentioning this particular point, because these two departments, so one is IDS and other is SPRU, which stands for Science Policy Research Unit. So they closely work together when we talk about certain subjects which are taught in School of Global Studies, like international relations. Then there are certain courses related to geography. So they are such a huge department. They underwent the technology transfer project with TERI, and Sussex has basically advised most of the governments and NGO in this field. And it was fortunate enough to receive a £2 million grant for migration studies, and it's like easily one of the biggest departments in terms of research, and very international in approach, I must say. Other than this, like I mentioned, that it's very international, and then it believes in interdisciplinarity, which if you look at the course structure taught at Sussex, you'll be able to see how interdisciplinary the courses are. And there are a host of societies where one can freely actually express their ideas. And there are very few campus in the UK which are like as vibrant and culturally as active as Sussex. And if I talk about the notable alumni currently in India who have I would say studied from Sussex, one is Srinivasan Jain and Shivraj Prasad. These are the notable alumni. Srinivasan Jain, I don't know whether he's still with NDTV or not. So he's one of the senior editor at NDTV right now. Other than this, what else is left? Yes. So now if I talk about accommodation, so Sussex being a campus-based university, we have on-campus accommodation available, though students have the option to stay off campus, but then we suggest the students to initially study on campus, because then if you look at the not study, stay on campus, because whatever the rent is, that is inclusive of the utility bills, each and everything, and then you have 24/7 easy accessibility to the library. You save on time, your travel cost. All these factors are there which one needs to take care of. Other than this, if I talk about the career section, so we have, in fact, Sussex was one of the university, the very first university to come up with a Career and Employability Center in the UK, and after that, because that became a success at Sussex, various other universities in the UK, they after Sussex set up this Career and Employability Center, they also came up with such centers. So there is a database, job database, which is like CEC. So you can search the jobs there, and then there are different other job sites as well, right? When the students, they are close to completing their masters, then they can actually start to register themselves with the Career and Employability Center, look for jobs. Then we have like this center, it basically create free workshops, hold free workshops to train students in CV making, and training what are the do's and don'ts while they're preparing for their interviews. So such free workshops they hold to train the students. And then other than that, like I mentioned, so this is something which is related to full-time job, but then part-time job is something which a student has to decide whether they want to completely focus on focus on studies for this 12-month duration course, or they want to, besides this, they want to work part-time, which is, I mean, considering this area, Brighton, there is no dearth of part-time jobs availability in this area. And like I said, so in terms of the career after your post-graduation, so the IDS postgraduates have gone on to work on, national government level as ministers as well.
It's 11 o'clock.
High level officials in development organizations, and that also depends on the student choice as well, in terms of their career decisions, what they want to further, what they want to do once they complete their masters. So they're working to basically define and solve some of the most pressing global challenges after studying at IDS. Beyond this, let us just look at the last factor, which is the tuition fee and the living cost. So tuition fee, though this year we still haven't got the update on the tuition fee for development related courses, because of, you could say, the reason COVID could be one of the reasons, because there have been certain changes in terms of the I would say study style on campus. In fact, I would like Chandranshu also to talk about this, since he's already there and have spent almost close to 12 months there. So if I talk about the tuition fee till last year, that is close to around 15 lakhs for the entire duration. This is just the tuition fee. Apart from this, living expense will go up to somewhere around 10 lakhs, 8 to 10 lakhs, out of which, like I said, one can also do part-time job and can earn some part of living, if not cover or is able to earn the entire living, at least can take care of some part of a half of their living expenses. That is there. Beyond this, I think I have covered all the sections. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk about development related courses and what are the career opportunities. And if any of the participants have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you very much for an elaborate and very well articulated speech about the career opportunities and in-depth analysis of the institute, IDS Institute, and the University of Sussex. Before we go ahead to Q&A session, and before we take some opinion from Chandranshu and Vibhu, I wanted to do the introduction of everybody in the session, but I was waiting for everybody to join. So we'll do quick introduction so that you will get an idea about the background of participants in the session. We'll do a quick introduction based on batch wise. So I'll call up the batch number, and whoever are in the session from the batch. I'll just call the batch number. Batch can introduce themselves, their name, their place of work, and the field of work. And so, can I have the participants from batch 1 to quickly introduce to yourself to ma'am?
Hi Jaya, this is Deepa from batch 1. So, and I really thank Neeta for such a wonderful session, and I believe that that's really going to help many of us. And if we are like, if we want to pursue further studies, and the current batch of students to think more academically. So, thank you so much. So, yes.
Yeah. Who else? Nice to see you, ma'am.
Yeah, hi Jaya, hi everyone. This is Abhinav from batch 1, and hi Nita. Thank you so much. It's a great opportunity for all of us. So all the information in a brief, that is a very fruitful for us, and we could have some sort of information, so then we can go ahead for other uh, for for uh, for higher studies and all.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abhinav. Who else is from batch 1? Mr. Nainesh, sir. Do we have him? Also, shall we move to batch 2? Anybody from batch 2, please?
Hi everyone, this is Lalan Singh. Thank you, Nita ma'am. You have given very informative this will
So
not
please all-
my
Your-
for Union Bank of India.
Right.
Okay. If not, it will help myself. It will help some others. I can guide them to pursue higher education in foreign universities. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Very well. Good point you have highlighted. Anybody else from second batch? So from third batch, it's me. I'm presently working in All India Radio in Andhra Pradesh. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being here and giving us inputs about English. Other friends
Yeah,
from
hello
batch 3?
everyone. This is Surendra
Please
Kumar.
introduce.
Currently, I'm working in Naru Foundation. This is in Noida West, and this is a good session. And my some of junior, they are looking forward for such kind of courses. So I hope this session will help me to guide them.
Thank you, Surendra.
Thank you so much.
Before we continue with batch 3 students, we have sir. Would you like to introduce? He's from. We have Nainesh sir from batch 1. So please introduce yourself.
Jashima, I think
And friends. Mani, are you guys there?
Yeah, hi Simha.
Or
Morning,
we'll move to
everyone.
back.
It's nice to hear from all. I'd like to add a small point from my side. It's good to have experience. So wherever you are, studying, working, you should experience different data. Thank you.
Rightly pointed out, Ankruti. Who else from batch 3?
Nilmani.
Yeah. Introduce yourself. To Neeta ma'am.
I'm with on some skill development and education related projects.
Wonderful.
I
to go abroad for studies, right? And I've seen Chandranshu going. He's from my batch. At the same time, this session is encouraging, and I'm seriously looking for going abroad for higher studies.
Great,
I have
great
not
to
yet completed my master's yet, so I need to complete my master's in some rural development course, and I might go abroad someday. Thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome.
Anybody else from batch 3 or will batch
This is Simha Sanjit here from batch 3. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, go ahead, Sanjit.
Hello.
Where are you
Yeah,
working?
thank you.
Tell us about your
Currently I'm working in Canara Bank as a manager, and right now I'm handling on deputation post for some skill program of CSR activity of Canara Bank, that is Root City Vertical RCT movement is being implemented in the country with the Ministry of Rural Development. Currently I'm working as a director of Root City in Vaishali district of Bihar, and
fantastic.
I would like to extend my all thanks to you people
No problem.
Yeah,
We appreciate. We will share the concise inputs definitely. Anybody else from batch 3? Or
Thank you
we'll move
so
to
much.
batch 4. Welcome, Sanjit. Anybody from batch 4, friends? If not, we'll move to batch 5. Any from batch 5?
Hi everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you Neetaji for the session. I think we all had some perspectives, but add value to that. I think thank you. From your side, I think. And I also thank the
From batch 5, friends. Anybody from batch 6? We'll move to batch 7.
Yeah, hi, I'm from batch 7.
Hi, Shawan.
Sorry, actually I just joined. I was in the first half, then I left. So can you just
No problem, Shawan. You just have to introduce yourself. Where that Neeta can have an idea about our diverse group.
Okay. Okay, so my name is Shawan Ali. I'm from batch 7. I'm working with foundation in India.
Thank you, Shawan. Anybody else? Batch 7?
This is Rahul KR from batch 7. Currently
Rahul.
working in NABARD Consultancy Services, Mumbai. Taking care of this DDGQI projects of Ministry of Rural Development. Thank you for such a nice session, sir.
Great,
It was
great. Thanks to ma'am.
really informative.
Yeah, thanks to Abhivakti team and our Maitri Alumni Association team.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anybody from 7? Shall we move to 8? Batch 9. Can we have friends from batch 9?
Yeah, hello. Hi, my name is Ankit Srivastava, and I'm from batch 9, and currently I'm working with Jharkhand SRLM. I'm based out of Gumla district in Jharkhand.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ankit. You have any friends from batch 9 here? You can spot anybody?
I don't think there's no one has joined, sir.
Batch 10? Can we, let's move ahead to batch 10.
Hi, myself Amit Tiwari from batch 10. I'm working as a state coordinator for transformation of aspirational district program in Bihar, and to thank Abhivakti team to have organized this meeting on such an important topic. Actually, this session guest Nita give us insight on the elaborated development and Mathri team as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit. Anybody else from batch 10 or we'll move to batch 11? Or batch 12?
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Shashwat Singh from batch 11. I'm working as a state private limited and looking after D2JKY project. So Nita madam, so give us clear perspective. Actually, I'm going through all the universities, but I'm not getting actually clarity on which courses I choose or which university I choose. So Nita madam has given us some clarity on it. Thank you, Nita madam.
Then we have somebody from batch 13, 12 or
Batch
13.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Jayana,
Hi.
please go ahead.
No, you go ahead. It's okay.
No, please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I am Rituraj. I'm from Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, and currently I am working with Government of Haryana. And nowadays I am situated at Faridabad.
Thank you.
Hello. And I'm working in Andhra Pradesh for the farming late, but like applying for these, like just started like documenting and everything. So I'll have to check the recording because this is very important for me right now. Thank you.
Please share the concise puts from this session. Thank you for being here.
Hello everyone. I am promoting an FPC in Ranchi. And even I was for UK, BA and MPP. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Satish. Anybody else from 13 or 14?
Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. I am Shravan Kumar from batch 14. I am working in Odisha Livelihood SRLM. Yeah, after job, it is getting opportunity and information to go for higher study. So I thanks to Abhivakti team for making such a webinar on this and looking forward more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Shravan. So 15, batch 15, 16, 17, do we have anybody?
Good morning,
Any-
everyone. I'm Shubham.
We are waiting for you, Shubham. I thought you were from batch 10 or 11.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shubham Kumar, and I am from batch 16. And I'm currently based in Bengaluru, and I'm working with Karnataka State Livelihood Mission, Government of Karnataka. And Neeta madam, thank you so much. Many of us are aspiring to go abroad and find our opportunities and destinations. So thank you so much for being here and enlightening this stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else from 16 or 17 batches?
Hello everyone. I am Amartya Roy.
Hi.
And currently I am working as State Manager MIS Documentation and Communication in Citizens Foundation. And I am looking after the SDFC Parivartan HRDP project, CSR project. And I am looking after partnership, communication and MIS. Thanks a lot.
Nice. Anybody from current? Introduce yourself, please.
Hello everyone, I am Amrita Krishnan from batch 17. I am currently working in KSRLPS along with Shubham Kumar. So the session was really informative and I hope my batchmates and myself will be benefited from this. Thank you for the session.
Thank you, Amrita. Anybody else?
Hello everyone, I'm Anil Reddy from PGDM Batch 1. I'm currently working as Block Project Manager in Rajasthan SRLM. Thank you, Nita, ma'am, for this comprehensive session on international studies. It will be very helpful for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anil. So I think
sorry. Hello, sir. Yeah. Hello, sir. I am Ravi from batch 2, currently pursuing my PGDM Rural Management 2-year program from NIRD and PR. And it was very nice hearing to Nita ma'am. Thanks a lot to Alumni Association. Thanks a lot to the team Abhivakti, Jayasimha sir, Chandranshu sir. Thank you very much, sir. It was very informative session. And actually, I was actually planning to go for higher studies in foreign. So looking forward for more opportunities like this and more informative session. Thank you so much once again, sir.
Thank you, Ravi. Anybody who has been left out?
Hello, everyone. My name is Nishang and I'm pursuing PGDM RM from NIRD PR. I'm from batch 2 and I want to say thanks to Neetu and team Abhivakti for organizing such a knowledgeable session. Thanks.
Yes. Nishang from current batch. Anybody from current batch?
Good morning.
Anybody else?
Yes, good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Myself, Alok Ansuman. I am from Bihar. I did my graduation in Humanities and Social Science. And after that, I joined to NIIT for my PGDM RM program. Thank you, sir. Thank you for providing this session.
Thank you, Alok. I'm sure definitely current batches having participated in this session is a great opportunity because at our times we never had such an exposure. So I think current batches are really current batches. So whoever passed out in last 3-4 years have definitely should make of this great opportunity, and also everybody of us can make use of this opportunity. Do we have anybody else left? If not, we'll go ahead with Q&A session. Nita ma'am, our batch is basically 1-year batch, 1-year course. PGDRDM, it started as a 1-year course in 2007. Then later they have introduced 2 years course also. I think around 2016 or 17, I'm not sure. So there are some doubts that can we go for higher studies with this 1-year PGDRDM course? Our course was very much similar to what you have explained about IDS course, which is packed in 12 months in a scientific way, where you can get benefit of 2 years education in 1 year. That's the kind of course all of us have done. Few of us are doing 2 years course. So about our course structure and the courses which participants have done. So we'll directly jump into Q&A session. Chandranshu, would you like, maybe Vibhu can share his experience at the end of Q&A session. What do you see?
So
because a lot of people
probably
like have some questions. So I think it would be appropriate to jump into Q&A now.
Okay, so maybe we can answer the questions first, and then probably I can talk something of my experience at Sussex, and Vibhu can also talk about his experiences with the fellowship, so that we have a different perspective on education plus other opportunities, other international opportunities.
Yes, when and where needed, I would like both of you to come in to answer questions along with Ms. Nita ma'am, because you have real-time experience. Questions will be basically directed to the chair, Nita ma'am, and you also can come in wherever you have, if you can, share anything.
Sure. And Neeta ma'am, if you can see the chat box, there are a few questions. Probably you can take them up and we can have live questions parallelly, whatever
Also.
you like. Yeah.
Correct. Anybody is ready with the question? Please.
There are some questions already in the chat box. We can take them first and then as you wish.
Sure. Sure, ma'am. So there was some questions in the chat box. I'll just them for everybody's convenience.
Yeah. So Neeta ji, are you able to see the chat box and the questions?
There's two queries from Ankit. Will this course of 1 year PG DRDM is eligible enough to pursue higher studies? Will the distance learning with the distance master's course, will they be eligible for higher education in UK or European Union? This is two questions from Ankit Srivastava.
Okay. Here, as I understand, you mentioned that one of the student has done distance education.
Yes.
And he wants to find out what is the possibility of studying a master's in UK, depending on
abroad.
right. So here I would like to explain certain things about distance education and online education. So with distance education and online education, I would say and the weightage of such qualifications are slightly, I would say, low as compared to a full-time course. However, one can definitely, I would say, overshadow this, I would say, slightly negative impact of the online education by showing their experience, their professional exposure, right? What experience they have, if they're working, if they have 2-3 years of work experience, or probably more than 2-3 years of experience, then they can explain that, and depending on whatever kind of professional exposure that they have, the admissions committee can decide whether that student stands a chance to study a course at IDA.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would like to ask Ankit, like, what he exactly means to ask. Is it higher studies? What do you mean by higher studies? Do you mean masters? Do you mean PhD? What do you mean?
For PhD, sir, PhD.
Okay. So
Because I've done my masters from IGNOU. So there is a sense for I'm not getting why, because if someone wants to go to higher studies in abroad, so will this work? My IGNOU course will help me to get admission into this.
Ankit, to do a PhD in US, you only need a bachelor's degree. You don't need a master's degree in most of the universities in the US.
And to add to this, I would say again, I mean, even if you have done a master's from IGNOU, so IGNOU masters is recognized, though, I mean, of course, the weightage will be slightly less. But then when it comes to a PhD application, that also depends on your research proposal. Because then when you are approaching a university for a PhD program, it is exactly not the university you are approaching. You are instead approaching the program supervisor. Because while selecting a university for a PhD program, you actually need to find out which program supervisor is working on your area of interest. So the application process for a PhD program and for a master's program is different. Master's program, you just simply hand over the documents to us, right? Which could be, like I mentioned, that it starts from your 10th standard till your latest qualification, which could be bachelor's or a master's program, right? So all those documents are sent by us. But then when it comes to a PhD application, the student has to first approach. In fact, before approaching, you have to find a program supervisor, look at his profile, see whether the topic on which you want to do your PhD, right? Whether that topic is basically the professor, I mean the program supervisor is actually working on your area of interest or not, and then you email the research proposal to the program supervisor, and they first give a go ahead as to whether you should I can consider applying to this university. So once they give a heads up, then you approach us so that we can send the application to that particular department for a PhD program. So it's basically not the admissions committee in PhD application who decides your chances of getting an admission. It's actually the program supervisor, under which you will be doing your PhD, under whom you'll be doing your PhD.
So I hope it answered your question. To do PhD, you don't need a certain master's requisition as such. When it comes to international abroad, it completely depends on your PhD proposal. Definitely having a good master's degree will help you in getting the admission. But in your case, Mr. Ankit, I think you have a master's from IGNOU and also you have a PG diploma from RD. So both of them can create weightage in your resume and depends on how you present it also. I think statement of purpose is one of the very important thing which Neeta ma'am has highlighted, which will speak a lot about your seriousness in pursuing the higher education, and also it will decide the scholarship. Also, you will get scholarship also based on your statement of purpose, how serious you are.
Moreover,
anybody can.
Yeah, Mr. Jayasinghe, I would like to add to the PhD part as you mentioned. So I didn't mean that masters is not important. In fact, like I said, that a sad part about India is that our foundations are very strong because we spend a lot of time working very hard on understanding our theory. So we are good at theory, but then India is not, I would say, I don't know whether interested or rather not doing that much of efforts on research part, which is why the students feel this need to pursue some of their I would say education from overseas, not only UK, from the best institutions around the world. So that is the reason, because when it comes to research, so since the other countries are doing research, their I would say course modules, the courses are updated as per the requirement of today's need. Whereas when it comes to our education, we are still, struggling with the old course modules, and there isn't research at all. So when it comes to PhD program, generally what happens is it's slightly, in fact, difficult for a candidate to crack a PhD application, even if a student is a master's student, which is why we suggest the student to go for a double master's, so that in terms of both the possibility of getting into a PhD program and also the possibility of funding, right, then the chances becomes higher, because what happens is that since we are not used to research, that's the problem, that the student finds it difficult to cope up with the study standards for a PhD program. Whereas if they do a 1-year master's course, since that is a complete taught program.
University and everything, I guess. I need to listen to the recording.
That is how, you know, they will get a year's time to understand their study standards, their study system, and then the chances will be higher to get into a PhD program and also to get funding opportunities for PhD. Since again, the duration is it's a long duration course. It's either 3 or, depending on the student's research, it can go up to could be a 4-year program as well. So in terms of the funding part, that becomes a student, as in becomes becomes difficult for the student to, you know, consider this aspect of this area.
Right. Thanks, ma'am.
I
Anybody
would
else?
like to,
with
I
their
would like to
questions,
add couple
please?
of things. Yeah, I'd like to add couple of things to it. First is, most of the US PhDs, I would say 95% of the US PhDs comes with a funding package. So most of the PhD in US is fully funded. You can do a PhD in US even if you have a relevant bachelor's degree. Third point is you can go via supervisor, or you can do otherwise as well, because like some of the universities also prefer you to apply first, and then like you cannot directly like contact your potential supervisor. It helps. It may or it may not. So US PhDs are kind of relevant in that sense, and anyway, a good university. Anyway, a good university in US will have you like to do a master's again. So that's the rule for like most of the US PhDs. European PhDs are a bit different, because you need a master's degree mostly, which should be research based, and many a times they do not come with a funding package. So like you find a potential supervisor, you and your supervisor come to an agreement, then you apply to the university. So this is how it works mainly in European universities, but in US it is a bit different. So these two are the distinctions that I understand between Europe and US. US I still feel a bit better, because it comes with a funding package for 5 years, fully funded 5 years PhD. They pay you maybe, if it is Harvard University, like $35,000 or so. So you get let's say $2,600-$2,700 a month, and all that. So it's quite good. But the only drawback is it takes a lot of time. Like it's a 5 to 6 years commitment. So 2 years you have to redo your masters, and 3 to 4 years to do your PhD. So it takes minimum like 5.7, 6 years to complete your PhD in US. I hope this answers your question and then clarifies a bit more.
Sure. Thank you, Vibhu. Anybody has questions, please?
On this side from batch 2. I want to know one as IDS offers 1-year master's program, only IDS, but most of the universities in UK. But 1-year master's is not valid in India, so it is good for both.
Can't hear you.
Sir, sir, as IDS offers 1-year master's program, but sir, in India, 1-year master's program is not valid, so we have to go for it or not.
See, the answer to the question is what you want to do after your master's. If you want to do a PhD, yes and no. If you want to work, like just like you want to maybe move up the ladder in the organization, that would really be helpful, because as Neetaji has already explained, lots of IS officers actually go to IDS and they kind of get promotion. They also, if a person is working in a state and they want to move to economic ministry, they actually do that course and then they get some preference in moving to the economic ministry. So that specialization bit will help. But if you want to do like further studies, as Ankit has asked, must
Vibhu,
PhD.
sorry, Saujanya, can you mute yourself?
Saujanya, can you mute yourself? Your Chandran, आप host है, Chandran, can you mute him?
Or alternatively, the moderator, can you please unmute Saujanya?
You are the host.
Saujanya, I think.
Yeah, you are the host.
Vibhu should do it.
No, I am not the host anymore. Chandranshi is the host now. You can just mute him. Or make me host, like just give me the host back. Yeah, so I think that kind of clarifies this. What is your end goal after that? If your end goal is PhD, yes and no. If your end goal is like move up the ladder, as Chandranshu has already spoken about, it's really good. Like
Chandranshu can make you host somebody. You can mute her. We need to mute Saujanya. Chandranshu, can you make?
Just call him.
No, I just checked. Vibhu is still the host.
Chandranshu, it's saying you are the host.
Or if somebody in this group knows Saujanya Kanike, probably give a personal call and please.
Yeah, we can move on to the next question if people have. Yeah, let's start discussing.
Yeah. So maybe Shubham, I think you had a question. Like if you still have that question, you can ask. Or
I got regarding the funds and everything. I just wanted to know like what will be the investment. So I got that. At last, madam.
Okay. Great. Probably on the chat box there was one more question on financials again, how much financial things plays the role. So I hope participant who has raised this question got the answer. And yeah, then there is one more question where the problems come during the selection. So can the person be a little specific, like what kind of problems are you Rituraj, I guess Rituraj has raised this question where the problems come in selection. So Ritu, are you there?
Yes sir, I am here.
Okay, great. So Ritu, can you talk about your question once?
Means how the selection process itself is so much lengthy, because the person who is preparing for IELTS or TOEFL, and he is getting, means the finance he has to manage, the migration thing he has to manage. So how much where most of the problems come in the finances or in the migration thing or selecting the thing, the college?
Most of the problems come because we don't read the eligibility criteria carefully when we start, when we begin our application. That's the biggest problem. So when we are actually reading the application form and when we are actually reading the eligibility criteria of that particular university or of that particular scholarship, we have to look at every aspect of it very carefully. And yes, it takes a lot of time. No doubt about it. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of mental, physical energy. So you have to be like prepared for it. But yes, please read every bit, every aspect of it carefully, because some of them are time bound. For example, if you're applying for a PhD at Harvard University, you need a GRE score. That GRE score will take time. Yeah, you need to prepare for GRE. You need to maybe you have to take GRE 3-4 times. So a couple of people I know that who did take GRE 3-4 times to get a good score and get admission. So that's one thing. Please read all the eligibility criteria carefully, and then you have to red flag things which are not complete, like things which you think can be a bottleneck for you. It's very difficult to answer because this question, because some things like what happened to me, I would say, like I did not read the application criteria carefully while I was applying, and then on the last day of the application form, I just, while I was submitting the application form, it said you need an English language certificate. Yeah, so that happened. So please read the eligibility criteria very carefully, and just like tick mark the red flags that you have, and then start working on it. Yes, it takes a lot of time. It takes at least 12 months, at least.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, I would take Srikar's question then. Yeah, so
I think, yeah, Vibhu, go ahead.
Yeah, question to this: what would be the level of German language that one needs to work to have a work if you pursue HS in the? Okay, I think this is again a very specific question, so we need to Google it. But as far as I understand, B1 is kind of enough to work, or I think B2. Yeah, B1 is enough to work, and B2 is to pursue your higher studies, something like that. Yeah. In Germany, in German language, but like many German universities also offer courses in English. So I mean, you have to think about this in like two ways, I would say. Do you want to work in English speaking countries, or do you want to work, our English speaking companies, or do you want to work in German speaking companies, Spanish speaking companies, or all that? So if you are like very clear about, oh, I have to like live in a German speaking country, which are three actually: Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. So you can learn the language, and then you can kind of move around in that job market. Like in India, if we have to survive, we need to somehow, a basic level of Hindi we should know if we have to like work across India. So that's how it is. And then if you want to work with like English speaking, English is still, I think, the most preferred language. So that's how it works. Like it's again a call that you have to take. But B1, B2 should be enough, and then having the language skills, of course, would be an advantage.
Yeah, and in fact, to add to it, that the funny fact is that even if you're working in an organization in Germany, the medium of instruction internally, whether it is, I would say, talking or writing, both speaking or writing, both is English. So I really don't understand the concept of, learning or to be well acquainted with the German language, which rightly said, Vibhu rightly said that it has to be B2.
Yep. Happy to take more questions if you have. Yeah.
Hello, sir. I am Ravi Gangrade, and I am currently in batch 2, pursuing 2 years program PGDM Rural Management. I have done my BSc Honors Agriculture from Allahabad, and here again I am pursuing my Masters in Rural Management. But I would love to study more about agriculture apart from India, anywhere in the world. So, sir, I mean, is there any chance of getting into that 1 year program which you were talking about, 1 year masters in US or UK? What would be the fee structure? What would be the future prospects and the future opportunities that I can think about if I pursue in agriculture something?
Ravi, the direct answer to your question is there. I have a cousin who lives in US. He is a graduate from BHU Agriculture, and then he did his PhD from University of Michigan in US. I'll connect him with you. Just ping me on WhatsApp. I'll just connect both of you, and then you can just talk to him. Like,
That means a
it's
lot,
just-
sir.
yeah,
Thanks a
it's
lot.
just finished his PhD, and then he started doing his postdoc like 6 months back. So I'll connect him with you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. चंद्रांशु सर आपके लिए एक क्वेश्चन है शाश्वत
Yeah, I'll take that up. So, Shashwant Singh is asking what will be the career perspective after the course in India as well as abroad. So, it's like Shashwat Singh, what I would say is that depending on the field or depending on the subject and your own motivation to do a particular course would decide how your career goes forward. So like when I talk specifically about rural development and development related courses, I have seen here at ideas that a student takes up lot of different kind of jobs and options. So for example, jobs as in jobs can always be with the government, multilateral, bilateral agencies. You can always think of coming back to India and work with government or any member of parliament or MLA. So it is about you, that how do you want to shape it up. But and additionally, there are other opportunities like academic and non-academic. So non-academic is something which I have like told just now, that NGOs, multilateral, bilateral agencies, and I have also seen a lot of people going back to their countries and working on new ideas, because like what happens in the international education is that you work with world-class professors like Robert Chambers of who introduced the PRA and all these techniques in India and abroad. So here you make a lot of connections which helps you to reinvent on your own perspectives on development. So like once you are done with this particular degree, you would yourself see a change, that your approach to developmental problems has changed. So there are many people who go back to India. Like I have a few people in my network, they have gone back, and now 3-4 of them are partners with they have an organization, they are partners there, and they help different political parties and many organizations to decide and to strategize their interventions so like there are a lot of options depending on how you want to take it up. So these are few non-academic ones, and when we see the academic options, you can always think of doing a PhD or a fellowship or a postdoctoral at a later stage, and take up some job where you can practice and teach. So there are a lot of things available there. Yeah. So I hope that answers.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Just to
Great.
add one more thing, so बिहार के जो चीफ सेक्रेटरी थे, उन्होंने भी अपनी PhD ससेक्स ही करी है. उनका शायद उन्होंने वो छुट्टी उट्टी ले लिया और फिर अभी शायद he is head of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or something. अब क्या नाम है, I forgot. And then not to forget, like one of the biggest feminist voices in the world, like Naila Kabir. She is also from IDS Sussex. So yeah.
Yeah. Vibhu, I think you are talking about Mr. Santosh Mathew.
Santosh Mathew, exactly. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And then he wrote a very beautiful book on Bihar, like what went wrong in Bihar. I think that was his PhD thesis as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Amrita Krishnan has a question. Amrita, can you come online and ask your question, please?
Yes, hello, ma'am. I'm Amrita Krishnan from Batch 17. So I have a postgraduate. I'm a postgraduate in economics and also PGDRDM diploma holder. Currently, I just joined working. I want to know the PhD opportunities that I can take up relating to economics and development sector.
Right. So as far as PhD opportunities, either related to economics or development, you can look for a course like development economics that you could probably check. And other than that, there are various other specializations, but then that will depend on which what is your area of research. Then, once we get, I would say, slight detail of your area of research, then I'll be able to provide you a more detailed insight into what could be the possible, PhD opportunities available for you. And like I said, and in fact, Vibhu said that you can also approach the university first. The application can straight go to the university first, or you may, once, and find a supervisor, we can get in touch with the supervisor accordingly. But PhD opportunities there.
Yeah, just to add what you say. So basically, how do we decide about it? The general trend I see is you see what topic interests you more, and then you find out which university and which professors are good, like which university has good professors in that particular. So if I have to study international relations, I would certainly go for Johns Hopkins. It's in DC. If I have to study maybe economics, development economics, I might go to Berkeley. If I have to study development studies, I would go to IDS Sussex. Like that's best for it. If I have to study sociology, I would go to, of course, Humboldt. So this is how it works. Like, what's your interest area, and then which universities they have good research and good professors in that particular research, and then you can directly apply or even approach. But yeah, please be mindful that US PhDs mostly come with a funding, 99.9% of the cases. But in European PhDs, you have to apply for both. You have to apply for admission, and then you have to apply for funding. That's the only catch.
So also, like, add just a point here, that I think not only PhDs, even if we are planning to pursue masters, I think it would be a great idea to some time and do research on the university and the specialization stream which you are planning to take up. But so technically, for that, it would be great to use the QS university rankings by the universities, and also now that we were talking about ideas, so University of Sussex might be at a lower is in some hundreds, like in terms of ranking. But when you the of say development studies or economics, then the university ranking and the department ranking might be different. So it would be a good idea when you are planning for studies that you choose course and university, you do a lot of homework to finalize some for master's courses. I would always suggest that you three very good universities, which would be like your list of some 3 to 4 options, which are the average ones, and so that you have a when you are applying, you have you have applied to ample number of options, and by the time you start getting the offers, at least you have 4 to 5 offers to choose from. So I think every master's and PhD student, aspiring student should.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just one more point. It's actually a very good point. So whenever you are planning to apply, please like make a list of at least 10 that like Chandranshu and I always discussed in Delhi or on phone. Like apply at least to 10 universities, 4 or 5 very good, 3 maybe good, and maybe 2, 3 average.
Yeah.
That's how we kind of break it up. So even if you like if you have made up your mind to go, you will end up like in at least a good university. So like don't only apply to like Oxfords and Cambridge and Harvards, but also like University of East Anglia, University of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
You can also apply to these universities. Yeah.
Great. So probably, overshoot the time. So there is a last question we can take up for say 4-5 minutes about his experience on the fellowship, and then we can hand it over to Jashima and Deepa ma'am for closing the session.
Yeah. So
So any last question?
I have one question to ask Neeta
Hello.
ma'am. Satish, you have a question? You can go ahead.
Yes. Neeta ma'am, can you light us on the M research?
M research.
Yes.
Okay. Again, I mean, what is the reason you want to do an M
Probably
research?
I am interested in working in the research fields. So I want to know about both. What are the insights?
So when we talk about difference between M research and either an MPhil or a PhD, so it still has MRes still has a certain bit of taught modules when it comes to UK, though it's completely focused on research, right? And also when we look at the entire, I would say, the course structure. So the credits are, lesser in MRes as compared to a PhD program. So when a student is looking for a MRes program, we rather suggest the student to, pursue a PhD. That will be much better instead of looking forward to a MRes program.
So MRes is for 2 years course you are speaking.
Yeah, MRes is for 2 years. But then since it's a research program, I would suggest that one should go for a PhD instead of doing MRes.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Chandranshu and Vibhu for answering the questions. Chandranshu and Vibhu, would you like to add anything before we go for a vote of thanks?
Vibhu, probably can you quickly tell us some experience of this thing, your experience with the fellowship?
Yeah, thank you. So this is another opportunity where you are not looking at doing some degree, but looking at some international exposure. So you should look at some fellowship opportunities, and then there are 2 very prominent ones. One is German Chancellor Fellowship, and then second one is Fulbright. Fulbright has some year-long, 15 months long research experiences, and then there are some which are in US, Obama Scholarship, Obama Fellowship, and all that. So if you are looking for a career change, if you are looking for more just to move up the ladder in the organization and not exactly a degree, then these are really helpful. And then I would talk about my experience. So I was in Germany for like almost 2 months. I did a research on social entrepreneurship, impact investment, impact measurement, and all that. And it was actually really good. Like you are not attached to a particular course, but you are kind of an independent researcher, and then you make your own path. So that was really interesting for me. And just like this is also a fully paid opportunity, so you don't have to worry about finances and all, which is a huge plus. And then of course you'll have opportunities to travel, opportunities to explore and all that, like what you want to do next and all that thing. And then it will also help you to as like just to move up the ladder in the career wherever you want to work. So this is how generally it works. And then my fellowship also gave me an opportunity to work with Sherry Blair Foundation, which is Tony Blair, ex British Prime Minister's wife's foundation for some time in London. It was again a great experience to work with truly international organization. And then the organization that I currently work with, it is again a very international focused organization where we are trying to do entrepreneur, where we are trying to create an entrepreneurship Olympics for entrepreneurship globally. So your exposure and then your understanding and then your scale, scope, everything goes up. So that could be another opportunity. You can look at websites like profellow.com and all that, which will like give you the list of fellowship opportunities available. Many of you also talk to me on one-to-one basis, which I try to kind of answer questions. But yeah, please feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions whenever you want. Just to, I'll touch upon Srikar's question one more time. So for a fresh graduate, would it be better to have some work experience? Yes, it is always good, and it is always better to have some work experience before going to abroad. But for a PhD, if you have a good bachelor's degree, I would say, like, if you are very focused about having like a research-based career, then you should directly go for it. Just, I mean, it just takes a lot of time commitment, and then if you start early, you will finish early. So you'll have your tenure professor and all that, like at the early stage of your life. So like by 24, 25, if you start, you'll have a PhD by 30, 31, and then you'll have a good 40 years of work left with you, which you can use it for, like, go and become tenured professor in great universities. So this, like, if you're very clear about it, please go early. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's from me.
Thank you, Vibhu. Chandran, would like to add?
Not really. I think Vibhu and has summed up quite well. Yeah. So
do we have Nainis for a vote of time?
Yeah. Nanish or Deepa ma'am, if you are here.
Yeah, Jaya, actually there was some technical problem. That's why Nani's dropped out. So I'm going to
No problem. No problem. So
yeah.
Session.
Yeah.
So I would like Neeta ma'am from batch 1 to give vote of thanks to Miss Neeta Chopra for her presence and her valuable time. Please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Jaya. So,
thank you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Neeta, thank you so much for the wonderful and insightful session, and that I really believe that the kind of information you have shared and the processes you have shared, that's really going to help all the participants who joined this session. And as was it, we all were like discussing the question and answer session, so many of them are really interested to pursue the higher studies. So that will definitely maybe they'll contact you too. Maybe they would like to write you for if there are any certain issues. So I hope it's okay with you, and you'll be able to answer them if there's certain issues. Okay. So glad you took out some good time this morning, and this is really amazing session. Yeah. So I'd also like to thank Chandransu and Vibhu to plan all these things and coordinate. That's really good that you have like decided and to help the young minds so beautifully. I really thank Jaya for coordinating and moderating this session so wonderfully. Thank you so much. And the participants who have joined this sessions, who have certain kind of idea that what they want to go, whether they want to pursue the higher studies in India or abroad. I hope many of your questions or the queries that may be answered. And if you have any further doubts or the queries you may ask or pursue any of us for any queries. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Nita, once again.
Thank you. Wonderful having you all in this discussion.
See you soon,
Thank you,
guys.
ma'am.
Bye.
We still have
Yeah.
the questions coming up. I'm sure we'll forward those questions to the concerned persons.
Sure.
Thanks for everybody for being here. Chandranshu and Vibhu for being the backbone of this session and also the events of alumni session. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. See you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.